students and learners. Today we'll be talking about manufacturing industries in this YouTube video. And before we move on to our topic, we have already dealt in very detail the challenges that were faced by the agricultural sector in India. And when we were talking about agricultural sector, we have also noted that agricultural sector also provided valuable inputs and raw materials for the subsequent sectors, which were the secondary or also called as the manufacturing sector, and it was all helped by the tertiary sector, also known as the service sector. So today we'll be looking at a very important sector in our economy, and that is the manufacturing sector. Although after independence, this particular manufacturing sector has been of not that great importance, and it has not contributed that much to our Indian GDP, but it is slowly and steadily picking up pace, and the government is even looking forward to enhance, to promote local and domestic productivity. Now in this particular video we'll be talking about the issues that are faced by the manufacturing sector in India. We'll be talking about some of the government schemes that are in place, the mechanisms that are there to help the manufacturing industries, and then we have the way forward. That means what are the new policies, what are the new decisions that need to be taken to make manufacturing a giant success in India as it has been in China. So if you compare India and China, so China first of all developed its agricultural sector, which gave input to the manufacturing sector, and then it rode on the boom that took place in the manufacturing sector, and now China is a giant leader in the area of manufacturing, as we all know. Just to take a small example of manufacturing, we all love French fries, right? And with French fries we have tomato ketchup as well. But have you imagined where does that tomato ketchup comes from? This question was particularly asked from a particular child, and the question was that where does milk come from? And the child, hailing from a very creamy layer of the society, he said that the milk is coming from the factories. So in his terms the answer was not totally incorrect. So because he has not seen and he has not established the linkages between the different sectors or the process of the manufacturing of milk, so he was not able to answer the correct option. But he could only answer what he could gather from his experience, and that was the bottled milk that he could see and which was coming straight away from the factory. But in case of a tomato ketchup, we all know that tomato ketchup is made from tomatoes, yes, and these tomatoes are coming from the rural areas, or we can say the rural land holdings, which can be big land holdings operated by cooperative societies, or they can be small land holdings which are operated by farmers themselves. And this particular farm that we have over here, they are cultivating tomatoes and they are transporting them to the cities, and these cities are a big you can say consumers of these products and vegetables. Now this is the transportation that we have shown. So this transport sector becomes a valuable addition to the flow of goods and services from one place to the another. Without transportation, the movement of tomatoes will not be possible, and they would rot right there on the field and giving no value and no profit to the farmer. Now we have this particular industry which is called the food processing industry. This food processing industry does what? It takes the tomatoes from the farmer, which is being transported by the tractor or any other medium of transportation, and it breaks down the tomatoes, it grades them on the basis of their size. It takes those tomatoes, makes them into a puree, and then ultimately manufactures our famous sauce, or in this case we have Heinz over here, right? Now this Heinz is then again shipped with the help of transportation to the different wholesalers, who are again selling out to the retail stores, and these retail stores is the place where we are purchasing from, and then ultimately we have ketchup on our plate. and we are ultimately the consumers of this particular ketchup. So you see, the one tomato has traveled so long to reach your plate, and we don't know where our tomato is coming from. Our ketchup has tomatoes from which area we don't know, right? So this is the magic of manufacturing industries. They take input and raw material from different parts of the country and or the nearby areas as well, and they transform it into something valuable. They put in value addition to it, and they manufacture something and sell it out to the consumers through a supply chain. This you need to understand. Now, before we begin further, let me tell you about the NCERT topics that you have to cover. In NCERT, there is classification of industries that is being given. So you have to learn about it first before viewing my video. So I would recommend that you go back to your NCERT, you read your chapter and then come back to watch this particular video, because you will not be able to establish the linkages between the NCERT and the issues that we are going to discuss right now. So in NCERT we have different kinds of industries, and we have agro-based industries which are taking inputs from the agricultural sector, which are quite dependent upon the industry or the agricultural sector. Like we have the sugar industry, like we have the paper industry. Like we have the milk industry. Amul is a very big cooperative right now. You must be having Amul milk and Amul ghee, Amul butter. All those products are coming from those agricultural and allied activities. Next we have mineral based industries, which are which are basically coming out of mining, or you can say which are coming out of the earth, which are being mined, which are purified, and they are being sold out to the industries. And the best example is the iron ore, coal. All these are mineral based industries. And when we are manufacturing, India is a very big manufacturer, one of the leading manufacturers of steel, and also a major exporter of steel around the world. Why? Because we have iron ore deposits in the Chota Nagpur plateau. We have coal deposits near about in that particular area in Jharkhand, and the confluence of both these industries, both these raw materials, both these mining operations, the culmination is that we have smelting units, and these smelting units, they smelt iron ore into iron, and ultimately it manufactures steel, which is being shipped to bigger ports like Visakhapatnam, and we have some of the ports on the eastern coast as well as on the western coast of India as well. So these are the industries that we have to talk about. Then if we are talking about the big coastline, near about 7,200 km of coastline in India, we have to talk about the marine based industries as well. Fisheries, prawns, these are one of the main and biggest industries that are there in the marine region. Also, we have some biggest oil and gas deposits in the Krishna Godavari basin. So from that particular area we are extracting oil and gas as well. Next, moving on, we have different types of industries as per classification. We have big industries which have a large amount of capital input, which are capital intensive and also labor intensive. And then we have small industries which are MSMEs, medium scale enterprises, which are working on limited capital, which are dependent upon skilled labor, and generally are innovation driven, or they are proprietorship driven. So you have to grasp all these concepts first from your NCERT. And the biggest or the most important concept that you have to catch in this particular chapter is the location of a particular industry. See, the location of this tomato FPI or food processing unit or industry, it has to depend on certain factors. What are those factors? Just imagine tomato being a product or being an agricultural product which has a very small shelf life. Now what is shelf life? The amount for which we can keep a particular product for a certain number of days in a good condition. So milk, tomatoes and certain vegetables have a very small or a very limited shelf life. So the transportation from the farm is to be done as quickly as possible, so that tomato being a very soft agricultural product, it tends to degrade very quickly, and when it has to be transported quickly, so the transportation system needs to be very efficient and quick. Then this industry needs to be in the vicinity or in the nearby area of these farms from where it can get the maximum amount of tomatoes. Secondly, this industry should also be located in such an area where the cost of transportation is also less, right? I am a farmer in Sonipat in Haryana and I am growing tomatoes. I will not be sending my tomatoes in a tractor to Amritsar because it will not be cost effective, and ultimately on the way the tomatoes will again rot and my produce will bear no fruit or no profits, so it will be of no use. So the industry needs to be in the vicinity and the transportation costs also need to be low. Third factor over here would be the availability of skilled labor. The people who are available, the people who are picking those tomatoes, the people who are transporting it, and ultimately the people who are working in the factory should know about how to convert a tomato into puree and ultimately into a delicious ketchup. Next we have manufactured our sauce in the factory, but how does it end up on our plate? This happens again through the supply chain, through the forward linkage. I already dealt with forward and backward linkages in my agricultural video that we already did a few weeks back. So I would like you to refer to that particular video. Now, sauce, our ketchup is sitting over here. It would not go directly to our plate. It needs some medium to travel, and we have to have efficient transportation system which would carry the ketchup from the factory to the wholesaler, to the retailer, and ultimately to the consumer, that is us. So this particular factory needs to be located near the markets as well. So all of these factors, they are accounted for when an industrial unit is being established. Just take example of from your NCERT regarding iron ore industries. So we have efficient railway systems in the Chota Nagpur plateau, in the Odisha, Jharkhand and Bihar region, which carry coal, iron ore to these smelting units, and then again from the smelting units we have efficient system of transportation to the ports. So the railways are connecting these smelting plants to the big ports like Visakhapatnam or Vizag, which again are having the forward linkages, and the product is being transferred to other countries via big ships. So this linkage and this transportation system needs to be developed. So all these factors, they culminate into this efficient system. Now moving on, let's discuss the issues that the industries or the manufacturing units are facing in India. Now manufacturing industries in India are quite small and they are labor intensive. The problem is that the productivity is quite low. They do not have adequate power to work upon. They do not have enough skilled labor to work with, and that gives a very inefficient system of production of goods. So let's look at some of these factors. The first one is tough competition. We have tough competition from cheap and substandard quality goods from China and other countries which are dumping their products into our Indian financial ecosystem. So our markets are becoming unstable and unviable for these local players or the local manufacturers. Second one is corruption and black money. As we all know, for industrial units to be set up, we need to have all sorts of licenses, we need to have all sorts of permissions from the government to establish a particular industry. So, and with all those permissions, black money and corruption is rampant. So now the government has taken steps to enhance the ease of doing business. You must have heard about it, ease of doing business. We have been hearing it about for now 3 years almost, and find out the ranking that India is in right now in this particular year, and India has climbed certain ranks in ease of doing business. Singapore is #1 country in the world, which is the top leader in ease of doing business in the world. I want you to find out more about the Indian rank in the ease of doing business index. Next, moving on, bank reluctance. As we all know, the units are not big. The entrepreneurs or the proprietors have very limited capital, and because of that they need to take credit, and this credit or loan is not easily available. and the banks are quite reluctant to give out loan and credit to these small or medium players, and result is that they do not have sufficient capital to work with, and therefore they are not able to scale up their production. In economics, we talk about the scale of economies. Suppose I am manufacturing 100 units of a particular product. Suppose I am manufacturing 100 units of a particular mobile phone. So and for that mobile phone I am charging 100 rupees per unit. Let's take a hypothetical example. But if I am manufacturing 1000 mobile phones, the cost will come down drastically because I will be purchasing in bulk. So this is called the scale of economies. That when an organization is working on a bigger scale, the cost incurred by the organization will be less and the profit will be more. Third one is biased trade regime. We have a very biased trade regime in India where we are focusing only on the big sharks or the big corporations in the we can say manufacturing area. We have very few firms, like we have Adani, we have Ambani, we have Reliance, we have we have the Tatas, we have the Aditya Birla Group. So all these companies are into various products which are into manufacturing different you can say consumer and essential goods, even durable goods as well. So when we are talking about the local and the small medium enterprises, we have a very biased approach towards them. So we prefer to buy a very good mobile phone which is manufactured somewhere in China rather than to have an Indian brand, right? Because why? Because Chinese product is quite cheap, it is offering better quality, and the Indian product is not that cheap and also not offering that much of features. Then next one we have small firms. As I talked about, small firms, small land holdings will have more amount of investment, and therefore the proportionate cost is also less, and due to which productivity is also less. Now let's talk about the productivity issue in India. In India, the amount of skilled labor present is very less as compared to other countries like Germany, Italy, China, where skilled labor is, the government is investing into making skilled labor. But nowadays we have certain initiatives which I'll be talking about, and we're talking about Skill India, which is very important for India if it has to become a manufacturing nation. Then in NCRT, the pollution is being mentioned as one of the issues. We have many units which are being set up which do not have the adequate environmental clearances, and whenever big units are set up, the environmental impact study, there is an environmental impact study for everything, for a large organization or a manufacturing unit. So they are also biased, they are also leaning towards those big manufacturing industries, and for small players obviously this does not play well. Then we have all sorts of regulations for these, and they also don't have, the medium enterprises don't have the money to put in the safeguards, to put in the you can say the cleaning processes, the purification processes as far as water, air and noise disposal is concerned, or pollution is concerned. Then we have costly and slow transportation. I already talked about in lifelines of Indian economy in my other video that the average speed of a freight train in India is only 30 kilometers per hour as compared to 80 kilometers per hour of average speed in China. That is more than double. So you can see the transportation system in India is quite ineffective and costly as well, which again adds to the cost of products which is manufactured. Then we have all sorts of toll taxes, we have all sorts of octroi and taxes, other taxes which add up to the cost. We have less expenditure on R&D. Research and development is lacking in India. Very less amount of GDP or very less percentage of GDP is being spent on research and development in India. So that is the biggest challenge that we face right now. Then we have IP issues and enforcement. IP, you have to refer to this, you can Google it up. IP is intellectual property. I am manufacturing a certain good, and that good is limited to that particular area. The knowledge of that manufacturing of that particular product is limited to that particular area. Like Panipat is famous for blankets. We have Mysore Pak, the most famous sweet dish coming from Mysore, that the manufacturing process is limited to Mysore only. So we have geographical identification tags, GI tags for these products. So, but then again, these products again find themselves stuck in litigation and cases and intellectual property issues. So I wanted to find more about intellectual property rights and also Google about trims and trips from Google. Okay, these are very important if you have to gather a whole holistic view of this particular chapter. Now to move on. We have some government initiatives as well. The picture is altogether not that dismal or dark. We have some bright areas as well. So you can see the bulbs shining over in this particular region. That these are the government initiatives that are being taken up. The first one is the National Mineral Policy. Now, as we talked about the mineral-based economy, mineral-based industries, we have National Mineral Policy 2019. Now, in National Mineral Policy, the main focus is on Make in India. That means the states will be getting a much more bigger allocation of the natural resources which is coming out from a particular area. Like suppose we have aluminium coming from Odisha, from Raniganj or from any other area. So Odisha will be getting a bigger share or a bigger pie from the profits that are being collected by that organization or by the state. So National Mineral Policy gives initiative to the states so that they can invest more in skilled labor, they can be well off, and their natural resources rights are also protected and they are getting full allocation and full paisa vasool for their resources. Next one is Make in India. Make in India, you must have heard about that giant metallic line that was launched a few years back. So Make in India is an initiative to manufacture goods from other countries. We are inviting players from other countries into India, and we have been successful in some regard. So Make in India invites foreign companies to come into India and establish their plants. Now iPhone is being made in India in Chennai, right? We have car plants like Volkswagen and Skoda. We have other foreign car makers coming into India and setting up their plants. So this gives employment. This gives a boost to the Indian financial infrastructure. But the biggest challenge to Make in India is the ease of doing business. The litigation that is there, the entry and exit processes, the startup of the business, which needs all sorts of clearances and permissions. So that is a long red tape, that has a long red tape to it, which needs to be cleared out. Then we have Skill India. In Skill India, again, labor productivity was an issue over here, so we are trying to resolve it through Skill India, where we have to have a giant share of our population which needs to be skilled. Now, India has a demographic dividend. Now, what is demographic dividend? That most of our population is still young, and the majority of our population falls under the ambit of let's say 16 years to 35 years. That is the young workforce that we have. So this young force can work wonders if it is skilled. But sadly, we Indians are very rarely skilled in soft skills. So search about what are soft skills. These are the communication skills, these are the 21st century skills which need to be developed if India needs to become a leading manufacturing nation in the 21st century. Now, let's talk about Startup India and Stand Up India. This is a joint initiative. Startup India is again focusing on starting up on the startups. You must have heard about Swiggy, you must have heard about Food Panda, you must have heard about Zomato. These are the few startups that have cropped up. You must have heard about a very successful startup called Ola. Ola is an app which joins all the cabs in a particular city so that you can move about in a much more cheaper manner. So you don't have to call out to a taxi standing on the road and sweating yourself out. You just have to click on the app and your work is done. Your taxi will find you and it will come to you. So this is a very good use of technology nowadays. So Startup India makes use of the technology and makes use of the skilled labor to set up small industries which are technology driven. So Startup India is basically technology driven. Stand Up India, if you are talking about, this particular initiative focuses on generating entrepreneurship for the SCs and the STs and the women. in India. So SC, the scheduled caste, the scheduled tribes that we have in India, and the women, they are generally, we can say, they have been sidelined for a long period in our history. So they need to come forward. We have a very successful example in the form of Lijjat Papad. You must have heard about it. So Lijjat Papad is an all-women firm or a cooperative which is working out of Gujarat, and they are doing a very beautiful job. And right from my childhood I have heard about Lijjat Papad. I don't know if you are getting it nowadays or not, but it was a giant success in my days. Next, come to National Manufacturing Policy. This policy is a new one, and this is basically focusing on generating more manufacturing units and generating more skilled labor so that India can become a leader in manufacturing arena. And the main aim of this national new manufacturing policy is to enhance the share of manufacturing sector to 25%, and it also focuses on developing skilled labor in India. Next one is we have Mudra Yojana. Mudra Yojana is again an initiative to enhance the small and the medium entrepreneur. See, entrepreneurs are very, very important for India. Why? Because entrepreneur is some person who gives job to 5, 10, 50, 20 or 100 people, and from which he is managing his business operations, and they are also earning salaries and profits. So Mudra Yojana seeks to give startup capital, or we can say, as we say in commerce, the venture capital for these small businesses. Like you must have heard about a fruit seller getting some loan for Mudra Yojana. So there is no need of collateral over here. The collateral or the security that needs to be deposited. So this issue is being taken up. The bank reluctance is being driven out. This issue has been taken care of by the Mudra Yojana. We have 3 levels in this Mudra Yojana. We have Shishu, we have Kishore, and we have Yuva. Now Shishu is basically a small loan. Kishore is again a medium loan, having medium term, and Yuva is having near about a loan going to more than 5 or 7 lakhs. You can search more about it on Google. Next we have universal account number. Now the biggest challenge of Indian government is to bring more people into the formal system. Now there is formal economy, there is informal economy. A worker, a daily wage worker who is working on a construction site is generally an informal worker. There is no job security, there is no pension, there is no PF, there is no ESI. So he has no insurance. So these are the demerits of informal economy. On the other hand, we have a universal account number wherein all the people or all the workforce, they are given a unique number, just like an Aadhaar card, and all their PF number, they are being standardized, and now only one person or a person working in a particular fund will be given only one PF number, and he can make the withdrawal accordingly. So we are giving financial stability to our workforce as well. Then we have random inspection scheme. See, like in the 1990s, after the economic turmoil that happened in the 1990, there was doing away with the quota system. There was a boom to privatization, and liberalization took place in India. Similarly, Inspector Raj is a very big deterrent to manufacturing industries in India. Different inspectors are there. We have an excise inspector, we have a pollution inspector. So we have different inspectors coming from different departments who are inspecting these manufacturing units. So now what the government has done, there will be no direct inspection. There will be one window clearance wherein the company or the manufacturing unit will submit all its documents, and it will be provided a one window clearance at one place, and all the permits will be given to the company as fast as possible. And inspection will be done by anybody or anybody who is allotted on a lottery system. So the Inspector Raj is what a deterrent which is now being solved in this particular point. Now let's move to the way forward, or what changes need to be made if we have to make India a big giant success in the manufacturing sector. The first one is the MSME. In MSME, we are talking about medium and small scale enterprises. These are the driving force of construction and manufacturing industries in India. Small and medium enterprises need to have adequate amount of credit. they need to have adequate amount of you can say capital and skilled labor available. They need to have adequate amount of power available to them. They need to have lesser regulations so that they can work accordingly and make their unit profitable. And now because we have seen the COVID situation, so what is happening, most of these MSME will turn out to be NPAs or non-profit making assets for the banks. So this will be a big challenge for the Indian economy in these coming months. So obviously the government will be looking into it. We have labor. Now when we are talking about labor, we are talking about formal labor who is skilled. So Skill India is again taking care of it. We have ITIs in India, not IITs. I'm talking about ITIs. Now ITIs are taking care of all the jobs which are being taken care of after 10th or 12th class. So any child or any student who is not able to study further can take up an ITI course and he can become a skilled technician. He can become a skilled welder or any plumbing work he can take up. So that work is being taken up by the companies. Now we have education and skill development. Again we have Skill India I was talking about, and education needs to be developed. Now CBSE has started 6th subject as a skill subject from class 6th onwards. So 6th, 7th and 8th we are offering very many skill subject options to you people from which you can choose. 9th and 10th also they have some skill subject options, and obviously 11th and 12th you have many skill subjects from which you can choose from. So why it is happening? In order to develop linkages between your curriculum and the university curriculum and the industry. So the biggest challenge for India and the Indian education system is to streamline the whole system to fit according to the industry. What is happening is education system is falling behind the university, and the university curriculum is falling behind the industrial requirement. So the industry, suppose the industry wants a software developer, and in the software field we have a new language which is coming up. Suppose let's take example of Python. So in software developing, Python is required by the industry, and in universities and in college schools we are not teaching Python. We are still on HTML and Java. So what is happening is we are not having proper linkages. The children are not being trained, and therefore more expenditure and more time is being incurred and spent upon making these people skilled on jobs in these companies. So that is making the recruitment a very expensive and time consuming process. So if we are able to give skilled students and laborers and workers and you can say entrepreneurs directly into the financial arena or into the market arena, then it would be a big boom to the manufacturing industry. Next one is logistics. We need to have good FPI industries that I talked about. See, most of our industries are dependent on agriculture. So FPIs need to be developed. India is having 17 food processing parks which are dedicated to food processing industries. Why? Because India is wasting near about 30 to 40% of food right from the farmland to our plates. So we are wasting that much, and if the food processing industries is set up by a farmer, then his income can also be added and he can generate more profit. So if you are talking about doubling the income of farmers, this is one way to go. Second one is establishing good transport system, good tertiary sector, so that we have good banking service, we have good transport system, we have good internet connectivity, we have good linkages with the market. So I talked about backward and forward linkages. If this farmer over here is able to connect with this market, because he is a consumer also. A producer is ultimately a consumer as well. A farmer needs to eat. A farmer needs to have some seeds and equipment for his farm. So he is a consumer as well. So these forward and backward linkages need to be developed. For this particular industry, this is the backward linkage and this is the forward linkage. Right? So these linkages need to be set up, and we have to have efficient storage system, and cold storages need to be developed in India. Also, we need to have, you must have heard about Amazon setting up some logistical parks in India. In Sonipat, we have the biggest logistical park that Amazon has set up in India. Okay, so that is one example, that good example which I can give it to you. So logistics need to be set up, and this will help the flow of goods from one place to another and ultimately to the consumers. And ultimately, the most important of all, India needs to spend more proportion from its GDP to R&D, research and development. This is the ultimate point which needs to be covered up by the Indian government and the manufacturing sector. So research and development in different fields. Suppose we're talking about take this example of ketchup. So how to make a more delicious ketchup, or how to preserve it for a longer period of time. All this needs to have R&D. So every factory, every manufacturing has their own R&D. So the government needs to have some initiatives for R&D as well. So this was more about it, and I want you to go to your NCERT, study the concept first, and then come back to my video. And I hope this was a very useful video for you. But before watching this particular video, I want you to watch two of my videos, that is the agricultural economy sector, the challenges faced by agriculture, and the second one is the lifelines of Indian economy. This will help you to understand this particular video in a much better way, right? So with that I'm signing off. Have happy learning, all of you. Enjoy.